And I would like to present shortly my colleagues on this lovely podium. I will start with, I have a list, with Shahzad Nazarpour. She grew up and studied theater and art in Iran, and since 2020 she has been studying transmedia art at the University of Applied Arts here in Vienna. We will see Shahzad also shortly on the screen, but I will tell you a bit later about this. To my right, we see Klára Koštal. She studied comparative literature, cultural management, as well as political and communication sciences in Vienna and London. And currently she is working as a consultant for the UNESCO Convention on Diversity of Cultural Expression at the Austrian Commission for UNESCO. And this institution is also a co-partner of this tonight's discussion. Next, we have Miglena Hofer. She is a legal professional and business consultant based in Vienna. She holds legal degrees from Sofia University and Vienna University, and is the co-founder of Austria for Beginners and the Collaboratory. And we also have Severina Ditzov. She is also a business consultant and legal professional and a co-founder of the Collaboratory, as well as one of the lawyers behind the Vienna-based Austria for Beginners. About this we will learn from them what it is and why they are here tonight. Severina has been working in commercial company, immigration, labor, and social security law for 6 years in Vienna. So, as you see, we have 4 experts on the topic of how to stay legally in Austria and how are my experiences with it. And before we dive into the discussion, we will have an art intervention, a video screening of a work by Tchapanova. Daria produced this work as part of a fellowship program within Austrian Commission for UNESCO together with Kulturgemma. And the work is called Bits and Pieces of Visual Research about Barriers and Exclusion of Mobility, 12 Positions. It's an interview series with 12 Vienna-based artists and art-related professionals on the topic of migration, residency problems, and the city itself. And it's a nice intro to our tonight's topic. Daria is a visual artist based in Vienna. She studied also in Vienna, and her work explores urban and architectural spaces. And currently she is engaged with art and anthropology and how to draw a line between 2 ways of thinking. So you will see her interest very well presented in the video. So maybe we can start with the screening.
Als Künstlerin wurde ich immer mit internationalen Künstlerinnen in unterschiedlichen Ländern arbeiten. Aber leider mit diesen ganzen Problemen, es geht nicht. Jetzt wohne ich auch für 2 Jahre in Wien, aber noch habe ich diese Probleme. Zum Beispiel jetzt, aktuell, ich sitze hier ganz illegal, weil ich habe keine Visum jetzt. Ich habe vor 7 Monaten beantragt und sie geben mir keine Antwort und keine Rückmeldung. Und sie sagen, bitte ein bisschen Geduld, immer. Wir müssen als Länder Geduld sein. Wenn die Leute in Europa oder in den europäischen Ländern reinkommen möchten, sie müssen sowieso diese Fingerabdrücke machen. Und das ist wirklich wichtige Phase und Situation. Ja, die Toilette ist, ich glaube, es ist ein Versteckungsort im Zug. Wenn die Flüchtigen mit dem Zug fahren, sie können sich in die Toilette verstecken und sie können safe in der Toilette bleiben. Dann die Kontrollen, sie können nicht sich finden.
To say if you're smart, you belong in class, and if you're a dog, then you belong in the streets. That all worries belong in the past, or something along these lines. Eyes belong to the one who can see. Well, I've walked in the corridors of the privilege, but somehow I can barely walk on my 2 feet. I was once taught beside the intelligence, but if you ask today, doubt that I'd ever succeed.
I would talk about my first memories, like when I just arrived. I started to compare the city in that moment, and surprisingly, I like the maybe not old parts of the city, but the really gentrified new parts, like behind the Hauptbahnhof. There's like the big area where everything is like super polished and super artificial, let's say. And I just looked to it, and like there's the park, which seems like park, but it's not park. It's like just grass. We were in Vienna, like everything is super green, and I mean, park is park in Vienna. And I'm like, oh, this looks like in Baku. When they do parks, they do it like this. And the funny thing is that a lot of landscape companies was working in Baku, who is coming from Vienna.
I love to walk in this city, actually. I love the city. I quite love the city, I would say. I think the city is beautiful, but the problem is the people. I will love more the city than the people. Yes. I think Vienna is nice. I mean, quite nice city. It's looking fancy somehow, and maybe a quite white city as well, because you know, Vienna is very white.
Who call for mobility, who have a right to move, or who has a means to move, or who participate in that. Mostly it's wealthy nations, right, which traditionally belongs to, or who initiated it, right? And who initiated it? The nations which were part of the colonizing project, right? They were colonizers. So there was a call for conquering the new lands, to open up frontiers, to move there is this idea of terra incognita, where you have to understand, settle down. So it's a continuation of that idea, right? Go and move.
It requires a sense of valuing yourself, even in the face of a system devaluing you. And I was very lucky to also be in a certain community that uplifted me. And I think that's something that is very important to remember, that as we move individually from one location to another, through one border to another, that we shouldn't look at this experience as a solo journey. We should also think of it in collective terms, that we are never alone in these ways of moving, and that we have to actually search for our collective communal understanding of what it means to be othered, what it means to be excluded, and to make sure that we have this support system that is constantly singing another song in your ear, even though you're faced with a scream, in a way.
Birds also migrate, and a lot of animals actually do that seasonally, or when they cannot survive in some place, there is not enough resources, and then they move in a better place.
So, thank you for this beautiful work, showing us some, let's say, keywords we are going to hear maybe more often tonight. So, maybe a few words about why do we need this discussion and why it is important to talk about these issues. When Jelena Micic from WIENWOCHE approached me for this, we decided that it will be very important, first of all, to try to find people who are able to talk in English about this, also with all these professional terms and legal language, but also to find the way not always to complain about what doesn't work, but also to think about what are actually the structural problems and how we can maybe solve them. Also maybe by sharing information, and something what Miglena said in the preparation talk, it is very important, the question of transparency. In the announcement of the program of WIENWOCHE, we also stated that we are very much interested in what's going on with the art and cultural workers who are part of the so-called precariat, which means that these people have non-regulated working hours, they're predominantly self-employed, there are often no working contracts provided, which results into non-regulated payment, tight budgets, and taking care of own social security and tax payment. This is already quite challenging for a person who has the privilege of having the proper passport here in Austria, but when you combine it with the fact that non-European Union or Austrian citizens without these passports, it makes the legal stay even much worse, or like, let's say, it's a bureaucratic nightmare. So many professional organizations, also like IG Bildende Kunst, try to provide basic information about the legal requirements, because of course in every field or profession there are certain specificity of the job itself, like how artists deal with their daily life. And this we combine also with consultation in tax issues and social security. But of course, sometimes issues are so complex that this knowledge we can provide is not sufficient. So that's why we have two persons here who deal with variety of cases. They just told me that they had people as, let's say, clients. This is, I think, the proper word for that, from more than 50 countries who try to stay legally here in Austria. Probably not only self-employed, but also people who have other reasons to come to Austria. So it is important to hear what are their main challenges in this way, and what can be maybe the solutions. And we also have someone from the UNESCO Commission here, and it is important to have them here because it is important also to talk about artist mobility. And mobility is something which is very important for UNESCO and implementation of the UNESCO Convention. And we all know that Austria has some issues with implementing this and enabling artistic mobility. In this term, Clara will tell us more what does this exactly mean. And also important is the personal perspective of someone who came to be in Austria, to work and live as an artist, or also to study art. So I think that we will start with short statements by each one of four of you. And I would like to start with Shahrzad. So maybe you can just tell us a bit more of what you, or I mean, maybe a bit more details about you, and also you said it very beautifully in the video, so it's not really a beautiful thing that we need to be patient, and I think this is something which is very difficult. And afterwards you can continue.
Yeah, thank you. Doesn't work. I mean, you can hear me? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, great. No, so now it's work now. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so first of all, I'm really happy to be here, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm happy to be a part of this event. But before I start to say my statement or about my individual experience, I really would like to share with you something, because I'm not here, but with a lot of pains, because I don't know if you know or not, it's right now, it's regarding to this demonstration in Iran. There are a lot of people, they are protesting in Iran because of the obligatory hijab and a lot of obligatory rules. These people, they need supports, and if we just share the news and read the news, it really could be helpful. Even they are far from us, but they can feel this support. And we saw already a lot of beautiful solidarity, for example, in the case of the Ukraine war or Black Lives Matter. So, personally, I'm really looking forward to seeing same solidarity with Iranian people, or at least with Middle East for one time. Yeah, these strong people who are fighting with big monsters with empty hands. Yeah. And about my statement, yeah, I was living in Iran and then I moved in Vienna since 2 years. As I said in video, in that time I really like to work as an international artist with different people, different art institute, with different culture. And it was my goal, but because of my passport and my nationality, I could find the opportunity to have a cooperation with different company or different artists in different countries. But because of my nationality, I got rejection 3 times when I lived in Iran. And even this applying for the visa process, it was really exhausting, and I spent a lot of time and money, but I couldn't receive my goal. And in that moment, I decided to make my performance, The Segregation, which was a simultaneously dance between 4 countries with Skype. And in that time, I felt, yeah, I can make the boundaries and grenzen and borders with this performance. And then I moved to Vienna for continuing my study at the Angewandte. And suddenly I saw, okay, no, it's the same problem, but with different shapes. For example, I have always these problems with this MA35 and this extending process of visa. And I think in this video I said 7 months, I wait 7 months, but actually I wait 11 months. So after 11 months I got my new visa. But I don't know if you know or not, this student visa, it's for every year, and so for 12 months, but this waiting process takes time just 11 months for me. And another problem is I introduce always my work and me as an artist, but they see me again first with my nationality. Then when I present my artwork, they don't ask me about, okay, what is your concept or your form or your, the first question, is it possible in Iran? What is illegal in Iran? Or how is the situation in Iran? What think your father? Or a lot of this kind of stupid question, which is regarding to my nationality again. And the last point, it's what I experienced in these 2 years as an artist with migration background. I can just do my artwork with the migrations topics, which I have to show myself as a victimization with a really weak picture as orpha here. But they give you the opportunity to just show yourself as a migrations. But if you want to work with another topics, maybe it's real difficult to take this opportunity. And in a certain way, you see yourself and you see, oh, every day you are struggling with these problems which comes from your backgrounds. Then you see, yeah, this topic is a part of your body as well. It's like your hands, your eyes, and you can't put your eyes or your hands away. So you have to just deal with these problems in different ways. Yeah.
Thank you. So maybe short statements from you. What do you expect from tonight's discussion, and of course, what are the main challenges?
Thank you, Vasilena. Thank you one more time for the invitation, to Jelena as well. Over the years, we have been in contact with many different communities, many different organizations, not necessarily those who work with the immigrant community in Austria and in Vienna, but others as well. But this is our, I think, first event with the artistic community, so really honored to be here. I would like to just quickly present Austria for Beginners so you know where our expertise and probably opinions come from. We founded Austria for Beginners nearly 7 years ago because each of us got contacted by various people we knew who seemed to encounter all the same problems, which I'm sure a lot of you have experienced with themselves, basically communicating with the administration. And funnily enough, that also was true for people who speak pretty good German. So very quickly we found out that German language is not the problem. So it's not about speaking German, it's about speaking the German of the administration. We're both, as you heard, we have both legal background. So we decided to do something about it, and this is how the idea for Austria for Beginners was born. Our organization provides legal support to members of the international community in Austria and in Vienna. We have majority of members from Vienna, of course, because we are based here. Over the years, as you said, we have worked with over 4,000 people from over 50 countries. For us, it's important that we just have a common language with the person who contacts us. One of our main topics, of course, is immigration law, and this is why we're here. And I think we've been really sad to experience over and over the same things, no matter where the person comes from. But now we're focusing on third country nationals. There's always a problem with transparency when it comes to the immigration process. Maybe first it's important to know that for third country nationals who don't benefit from the right of free movement within the European Union, need special ties to the country so they're allowed to stay here. And we have many different grounds for these special ties to be shown. It's either a family reunification, so if there's already a family member here, or it's a foreign talent brought to Austria by a company, someone who will be employed, or is a student, or is a researcher, or is an artist. The whole idea of the law is that we have main requirements every third country national should meet when they come to Austria, and also they have to provide specific requirements which one thinks should be dependent on the area of immigration and the ground for immigration. Sadly, we think that was not really well done when it comes to the residence permit for artists. Maybe I'll pass it to you and then you tell us. We can talk about this for ages, but to just lay the framework.
I just wanted to add that when we started the organization, we really didn't realize that we are literally were jumping down the rabbit hole and how needed this type of support was. Because we thought, okay, we both were students back then, and we thought we would do it for like a side job, we'll help some people, and after 3 or 4 months, the work bloomed literally. So each of the, I will start with this, each of the residence permit has a specific purpose. You want to, for third country national, you want to come to Austria with specific purpose. Either you're a key worker, or you're an artist, or you're a family member who wants to join the dependent who works here. But all of these areas fights same problems. The big one, as Miglena said, is transparency, and for me the second one is that administration see those cases only as paper. There is no person behind the paper. They don't realize that they, in some cases, can ruin lives. That if they decide in 6 months, the family will be separated, and there is a newborn baby in this family. So I think that is one of the really big problems, is that there are really humans behind these cases, and especially for artists, the way the law is written now is done. It doesn't see art like art; it see art like job. The residence permit written that way is to allow artists to perform art here as their job. They have to be either employed or self-employed. And there is no way to be here for a short period of time. Before the law was changed, I think 10 years ago, before that, there was this type of visa which allowed the artist to stay for a shorter period of time. This type of visa didn't give the artist the right to settle, but for artists who want to travel the world, to try different things, to work with different countries, this were easy way to stay here for a short period of time. Now there is only the residence permit, which gives you the right to settle, but the requirements for that are really hard to fulfill, hard to meet. And that's the big problem for me in the law right now. Maybe you can continue with
maybe Clara would like to say something. And then
I think that because you mentioned this visa, which enabled these shorter stays in terms of artist mobility, maybe Clara can just continue with this.
Yeah, like I'm gonna take it. Hi, thank you also from my side. I'm Clara. I work for the Austrian Commission for UNESCO, and you already mentioned the convention, and I want to explain to you what my position is in this panel. So there's all of these issues, and there's actually a UNESCO document that gives us a lot of legal ground and goals that Austria should implement. And there's this term called preferential treatment, and with signing the UNESCO Convention on Diversity of Cultural Expressions, Austria committed to give preferential treatment to countries of the Global South, and I'm going to use this terminology like UNESCO uses it. So it is a unique mechanism in the legal document where countries of the Global North, as Austria is, should give countries of the Global South preferential treatment to counteract the existing asymmetries that there are in the cultural field. And this really also concerns mobility issues. So there is this legal document that is really important, and also to really underline that when discussing this concept is really connected with the responsibility of the Global North, that is connected with power, that is connected with privilege, that is connected with also history. So mobility in this term is really an integral part also of artistic freedom. So, and also to give you this idea, it is a temporary cross-border movement. So of course, longer-term settlement is also something where we cannot separate under 6 months from above 6 months in terms of what the goals are, but we, in this UNESCO context, focus also in addition to what IG Bildende Kunst, for example, does under 6 months. And there are really clear goals that are there in operational guidelines where they're called for simplification of the visa process. And just recently a new report was published where actually the result is that in the last 4 years, no one single preferential treatment measure has been implemented in the Global North. And the main obstacles are just repeated as the years before. It is also high security measures, complex visa procedures, high costs, but also lack of funding. And these barriers are a big issue, and they hinder an international exchange that would be so important. And also to give you maybe some numbers from the report, because I find them so, like I always remember them. There's something like inward mobility compared to outward mobility countries tend to like cultural diplomacy, where they send artists to other countries, and this lies at 83%, and inviting artists from the Global South lies at 50%. So there's a really, and these numbers are, the gap between these numbers are way higher in the Global North than in the Global South. So, but also South-South exchange is something that is really impossible, and I'd like also what one interviewee referred to in the video, that it is a continuation of colonial relationships. I think you can really also see how, or what UNESCO observes in the report, how South-South mobility is just way expensive or more expensive. And yeah, I think also I want to share that we at the Austrian Commission, we don't do our work alone, and we really enjoy the cooperation with IG Bildende Kunst, and we see it as our task also to really bring it onto a level where these demands, these issues can be discussed with various stakeholders. And I'm so happy to be here tonight, also maybe to continue the discussion later on, where we can see which ways of maybe improving it also on a structural level will be possible in the future.
Thanks a lot. I think that now we can jump into the discussion. I prepared very short and very clear questions. We had one of the preparation meetings, and actually there was another person involved in the preparation, and the notion was that actually having an artist status in Austria and obtaining this resident permit as an artist is already a privilege, and should be regarded as a privilege, because not every professional can just come to Austria and say, hey, hi, I'm here, I want to work here. Is this so? Because I think that from what I've heard recently, because I used to be a visa person, but it was 15 years ago, before Bulgaria became part of the European Union. I don't remember that this was really the biggest privilege. It was actually kind of difficult. And the other thing is that maybe we should keep in mind that if the law says that you can come here to perform a job, the question is, where are the jobs for artists and how are they paid?
Question about privilege. I think artists are definitely not privileged when it comes to the immigration process. Quite the contrary. And when we prepared for this meeting, for this discussion, what we focused on was the self-employed artists, because when you have employment offered to you, then it's easier to move. Magistrat 35 or any other immigration office in Austria is less strict. They basically check if there are people with similar qualifications here, or if you have enough financial means provided by your employer. So it's pretty easy to actually move as an artist who will be employed. The big disparity for me comes when we talk about self-employed artists. As you said, the legal act provides this opportunity for artists to come here, self-employed persons, but then the criteria that they have to meet are quite unrealistic. What the provision provides is that if you would come here as a self-employed artist, you need to prove that you can support yourself predominantly from your work as an artist. And I think this is a really big issue. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not an artist, but me as a spectator, it seems to me that it's not really a 9-to-5 job, and it's not really, we can't really measure productivity in I painted 3 paintings this year and they sell them for 50 euros or sell them for 10,000 euros, or if you're a visual artist or if you made different installations, there is not really a norm that you need to, a box that you need to tick, so someone decides whether or not you're an artist. However, your ability to come here, self-employed artist, is only tied to you making money out of your art. And it seems to me that this is missing the point of what being an artist is, and all of you here, I'm sure, know much better than I do. As I said, I only see this as a spectator. But that is the big issue. I think Severina will explain now where is the big problem.
The big problem. As I said before, that to come to Austria with a certain purpose, you need to meet the general criteria, and there are specific criteria you have to meet as an artist. And on one side, there is a general criteria: you need to have enough financial means to support yourself during your stay. And on the other hand, in the paragraph where artists are regulated, the law says the means has to come from this specific type of work, because the law sees artists as job, as self-employment, as economical, as someone who provides, someone who produces, who provides economic activity. And these both regulations contradict themselves. They're not clear. And what happens when law is not clear? Usually there are court decisions who provides clarifications. The problem with the artist visa is that there are only 3 decisions in the past 10 years about the topic. And they say, yes, the law contradicts in that specific point, but the requirement that the income comes only from your art has to show if your art is not a hobby, if you're really self-employed. On the other hand, Austrian law, when it regulates self-employment, not for artists generally, says you don't have to make money from your self-employment. You need to prove a specific type of organization, a specific type that your intent is to be self-employed.
The intent to cover your costs, not even make a profit, not even
Exactly.
turn a profit. This is how little it takes for you to be taken as an Unternehmer, so as an entrepreneur, as a business.
And we see that the rules for the artists are way more stricter for that. And my thoughts when we talk about this when we prepare for the meeting is, okay, we have this one strict rule. Why there isn't another rule who says, okay, you can come from 1 year or a year and a half with some kind of visa, and then you can decide if you want to stay, if you want to be self-employed artist, or if you decide, I want to do my art for free, I have other type of income, and I will profit from that income. So that is the main problem in the legislation from my point of view, that it sees artists only as taxpayer. So if you earn enough, if you can pay taxes, then it's fine, you can come. But if not, there is nothing you can do.
Well, this is, of course, something which I don't know how many even Austrian citizens can cover as a requirement to live completely out of their artworks. We also talked during the preparation about the survey about the social economic situation of artists and cultural workers in Austria from 2018, and I think that there is one striking number in it, that when it comes to the average of let's say income from self-employed work, visual artists are somehow below 10,000 euro. I think it was 8,000 800 euro, and this is the average. And even worse, female artists, like visual artists, earn even less. I mean, we have an expert here on the topic in the audience for later, if someone is interested in the numbers, like my colleague Daniela Kovaindo is here as well. And of course, in this survey, we also, I think Jelena was very much looking into that to see if there have been people with non-European Union passport taking part in the survey. They were not mentioned. So it could be that either there was no one or maybe there was one or two. So this means that this representative survey also shows the situation of predominantly Austrian citizens, plus maybe some EU citizens who decided to be part of this survey. So this means that, first of all, maybe non-EU European citizens are not regarded as a subject of such surveys. On the other hand, probably it's also a matter of who gets access to the information, but also this means that we don't have numbers. So that if we don't have numbers, in this way we cannot also prove that this whole situation with the residence permits is totally illogical. So what can be one solution to say, okay, this is not realistic? The job description of being a visual artist has shifted so much. I cannot live only of my art staying in the studio and thinking that someone will pass by and buy a painting. It is much more diverse. I don't know who would like to comment on that.
I feel like, first of all, the recommendation from the UNESCO document have to be implemented. if this actually happens, what Austria signed for, then I'm sure they're going to find a way. But we've talked about a few possibilities. On the first place, what Severina already explained, that there needs to be a distinction between settlement permit, which at the moment is the permit for artists, and then a short-term stay, meaning up to 1 year usually. And then one of the possibilities that we see is that the short-term permit, for example, mirrors the requirements for students. To me, those are very similar for the following reasons. First of all, when students come to Austria from third countries, they have all the good intent to study, but we never really know during the year of study if they're going to study. The only thing we know is that they have to have acceptance letter from Austrian University, which is not hard because Austrian universities typically don't have entry exams, with a few exceptions. And then they need to have the funds to stay. No one requires those funds to come from any kind of activity. They only have to prove the origin of the funds, meaning the funds were not obtained through illegal activity. That's the only requirement when it comes to finances. To me, it's logical that if I'm an artist, I don't need to have money from my artistic pursuits, but I can have them from my savings from a previous job. My parents can decide to support me. I can have a trust fund. This has nothing to do with me creating art. And then at the end of the year, just like at the beginning of application, it's being evaluated whether or not you're an artist, which I'm guessing is by submission of a portfolio. Then at the end of the year, you can show what the intensity of your work, but not a monetary expression of your work. So not necessarily I've made up 15,000 euros this year from my work, but instead I created, I worked, I collaborated. This is one decision, one solution that we see.
And the other decision for the long stay, for the residence permit, is that self-employed artists shall be treated as other self-employed people. Because for other self-employed people, there isn't a requirement if you make enough from self-employment to support yourself only from self-employment, regardless you're considered self-employed. The court decision are not very clear about this, because the law says, okay, for self-employed artists, there is the possibility for this declaration where another person can declare he or she will support yourself. It's called Haftpflichterklärung in German. And the law says, yes, it's possible, but why is that possible when there is a requirement that you have to earn all your money from enough money to support yourself for your self-employment? And the court said the requirement for the income from the self-employed artist is because they have to show that this is not a hobby, the intent of the art. For the other part, the Haftpflichterklärung is okay. There can be. So for me, this is one of the big changes that should happen. More artists should appeal their decision. So we have more court decisions, and so the jurisprudence can evolve, and artists can be treated like other self-employed persons in Austria.
And then, of course, transparency, because right now, as your experiences was, and what we say to all of our members who are rightfully frustrated and angry, it's not about you, and that is the problem, isn't it? That it's not about you, it's how long it takes. It doesn't matter if it should take maximum 6 months, it takes an eternity. What we try to do is raise awareness about the legal deadlines the administration has to keep. So 6 months is the longest time you should be waiting for a decision. Could be a negative decision, but it has to be issued within 6 months. This is a very commonly used strategy. When you withhold the decision as an administration, you withhold the right of the person to fight against something. And as you said, ein bisschen Geduld, yeah? This is the favorite phrase of Austrian administration. The other one is, ich habe sich nicht akustisch verstanden. That is the other favorite phrase. So what we do with our members and everyone who comes to us, we said the 6 months mark, we complain. We actually file a formal complaint to the court. And then in every single cases, without an exception, because of course we only advise it when you're within your rights, within 2 weeks we get a call, please withdraw your complaint, we're going to issue the permit right away. Every single time. You know that already last year the numbers were published, which was the Austrian administration with the mostly the people most complained against, and of course Magistrat 35. And we know that, and everyone knows that, and it doesn't change. So we need to complain more, and there need to be a bigger lobby to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. I don't know how we get that, the lobby, but I feel like it's the right way. One of the things we have to do is create that lobby.
Just one remark I'd like to add, also what could be really concretely done in terms of temporary stay. There is, for example, when we look at the Schengen visa codex, there are possibilities where not all documents have to be required. There could be a waiver of fees, and especially in terms of the logic that an art project is publicly funded, and then the artist coming first has to pay money for the visa, which could be totally an exemption. And also, if the artist is not allowed to enter, then all the money is not well invested by also the public authorities, and there's a possibility to have bona fide applicants, and this doesn't happen. And there's really cases in this report of artists that have been regularly working in Europe. However, time after time, they have to submit the same documents again and again and again, even though it shouldn't be a new thing to the authorities. Yeah. And a lobby is a really important thing.
Also, online system that applicants can access, where they can check the status. Remember, after this journalistic piece, I think it was last year, about Magistrat 35, the general public was wowed by it, but we all know that this is what happens. Like, we see it every single day. So for us, for people who actually have to deal with them, it was not a surprise, really. And then the commitment was made that the information system will be reformed, and the chief of the department bragged about this new call center, which is going to allow us to solve 90% of our issues on the phone. What happens now with the call center, I can tell you because we call every single day for different people, is the following conversation. Hi, I need to check the status of this application, and they go like, we don't have access to the status of application. Right, can you get me in touch with the person, and then we have the name? Not available at the moment, but I can leave a comment for them to call you. Never call back. In a couple of months we call again, and because they have to make a note, right? It's mandatory for them to make a note, and they go like, oh yeah, you called 3 months ago. Yeah, we called 3 months ago. So the call center works less than perfectly, I would say. An online system would be much better. I feel like the investment is going to be worth it. First of all, less people on the phone. We can check that, and of course we need to be able to send a direct message to the person who is responsible for our case. Because I can also understand that the members of that department are overflown by emails, and they're overflown by emails because they take months to process an application. So I understand that when you open your inbox and you have 300 emails today with the same question, what is the status of my application? And you have 50 files you need to go through today, and you need to manually enter every single piece of data from every document in the system. I understand why even those of the people who work there who have every wish to do their job right are so basically prevented to have the opportunity to do that. I feel like it's not made even easy for them to do their job, for those who want to do it.
So let's say it's the system which is behind it. We know that it comes, of course, from, let's say, this legislation, maybe Ministry of Interior, who is supposed to regulate all this process, and maybe many other, let's say, persons who don't have this big interest to deal with these topics. But for example, for Shahzad, I would ask, what will be your prompt solution to, I mean, if you decide to stay after your studies in Austria, what would you wish to be the situation for you?
To marriage, maybe. I'm kidding. I mean, it's really easy to, yeah.
Don't stream that. Don't stream that part of it.
Honestly, but no. I mean, actually, I have no plan because I don't see a very open future, and I just want to extend my study. I mean, maybe 10 years, 20 years, I don't know, because it's really absurd, because I have no solution. It's even you, as I said, marriage with someone, or you take this artist visa, which is same process as a student, so it's not option, or I don't know, it's not a lot of possibility. But I mean, it is what it is, and you have no space to work as an artist in your home country, and here you have to struggling with a lot of new problems, so you have to choose. Yeah, but I mean, regarding to these topics, which, I mean, I said it's take the 11 months for it. And I think they don't work, because I call them every day, and I mean, after this 11 months, I went to the Emma office, and with a smile, they told me, sorry, we lost your documents. And I was like, what the fuck are going? They don't work, because I called them every day, and I mean, in the beginning, my email was like, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, and I'm the Guten Tag, wo ist meine Visum? It's like, it's absurd. And they don't care. They don't care.
I think they have a really bad organization there inside the department. I see this recently. They changed the system because we noticed that when we go with members and we submit like a really thick stack of paper, and the employees have to manually enter everything from every document, you can imagine how long that takes. So there must be something. I feel like in the era of digitalization, there must be something that could be done, that they can invest in a better system.
I mean, I think they don't read even the emails or the documents, because in the first 5 months they wrote me always Herr Nazarpour, and they didn't check it because they, you know, in this formula you have to say what is your gender, and they don't. I think they don't read, and they don't care.
One other thing we discussed during the preparation, I mean, there are two things I would like to talk about shortly, and then maybe we can open for questions and commentaries, because I think Jelena has to say it. But actually, one of the things I wanted to mention relates also to her position, for example. She's a visual artist, but in the same time she has a job within the WIENWOCHE, so she's employed. And within the sphere of the visual artist is rather unusual thing. So let's say she's in a hybrid position, and maybe it is interesting to hear from the legal perspective what is the possibilities of an organization who would like very much to employ a person with a non-EU or Austrian passport, that maybe tell them that it's not so extremely difficult, but this is question of, in a way, also preparation, but also fair pay, and etc., etc.
Do you want to take that one and maybe share our own experience with hiring a third country national? I think it will be, yeah.
As I said, each residence permit has a specific purpose. So if you're a third country national and if you want to be an employee in Austria, in most cases you receive a red, white, red card. For if you have a high education, or if you're a key worker, there are specific there are specific requirement for each topic. So if you are an artist and you find another opportunity to receive other type of residence permit, this is also fine. So if a company wants to hire you, they can check if you can receive a red, white, red card. They can check if you can stay because other family member is here, and there is a residence permit for a family member which give you access to the labor market. There are a variety of residence permit which gives access to the labor market. So the artist residence permit is not the only one possibility. And my advice for a company will be prepare everything before submitting the documents. Consult someone before submitting the documents. There are differences between different countries. For example, if the administration will require a criminal record, it's extremely easy to have it from England, Australia, USA, impossible from Venezuela. So if
China,
Singapore,
nightmare.
So if you prepare that before even go to the Magistrate 35. So otherwise you will be in this circle where you submit the document, they look at it after 4 months, and they will say, "Oh no, this document is 4 months old. You need a new one."
It shouldn't be older than 3 months. Now, but mostly also for employers, just don't be afraid to hire third country nationals just because the administration is trying to intimidate you. Yeah. What Severina said, preparation is key. The employers have to be prepared that probably the person they want to hire will not be able to start tomorrow or in a week for that matter. So the organization needs to prepare that as well. We know that we've seen that many employers give up on the idea of hiring third country nationals specifically for that reason. And of course, I can understand it. If I need someone to start a position from the beginning of October, I need them to start in the beginning of October. And all of the administrative, of the red tape I have to go through is just headache for me. we get that. But also, it's worth it when you want to hire the right person. We ourselves have hired third country nationals, and we even, although like I say we know what we're doing, and even then, after months after the person was already working for us, we get this letter that they're gonna fine us because we didn't file some paperwork on time, and we call up that what's happening, that we can't tell you, it's just, we can't disclose any information, but you will be fined. And what was the reason for that? We can't say. Okay, that's fair. So we dealt with it. Yeah, it took a few hours, but we dealt with it. I understand when employers don't have the capacity or the knowledge, or they have to pay a lawyer to do that. Then of course the price that you pay for the employee, of course, is higher and takes more effort. But don't fear it; it's possible.
It should be done.
Something maybe to add on this point, and it's really something that we've been observing, and also UNESCO has been observing, that art institutions often don't even dare to invite someone anymore, or even if it's employed or for an event. And I think it's really something where we're also trying to bring together a network where these cases can be discussed, but also where institutions, organizations do not lose hope and exchange, and that it is possible, even though the system is so difficult, which is also our task, to raise awareness to the topic, that is still, even though there's so much barriers and hassles, yeah, it's worth staying with the process.
And the situation is insane because the whole Europe suffers lack of working force. We need working power, and it is not nearly impossible, but companies are afraid to bring someone outside the European Union.
Maybe something also important we need to mention when employers are hiring third country nationals is the check the IMS is done, the unemployment service, because that is part of the employment service that in Austria has to weigh on the application. It's not simply about immigration, it also concerns the labor market in Austria. So when an employer applies for an employee from that country to move to Austria, IMS's job is to check whether in the country there's already someone, doesn't need to be an Austrian, but someone who possesses similar qualifications, experiences, and is available for work, and it's already integrated already here. So that's the check that IMS does. In our experience, when it comes to red, white, red cards, with the proper pay that the employees have to have, that is never an issue. And we also try, when we do the applications, when we assist with applications, we try to point that hiring someone is not, I'm not hiring a piece of paper, a CV. Everyone can graduate whatever university. I want that particular person because that particular person will bring value to my organization. So I'm hiring a person rather than diplomas from somewhere.
So maybe in a way, let's focus on cultural or art organization. This shouldn't be a problem of argumentation that we want to have, for example, Jelena and only Jelena for this job, or Shahzad and only Shahzad for the other job, because they both, of course, they have this, let's say, classic art education from the Academy of Fine Arts or another institution, but in terms of art production, each of the point of view is also unique.
Yes, absolutely.
And do you think that this could be maybe good as an argument, that IMS will really understand it?
Yes, also if they don't understand, then it's very easy to fight. And I know that we want it to happen fast and quick and in a very uncomplicated manner. We all want that. But at the end of the day, if we don't fight wrong decisions or unjust decisions, they will just stay that unjust, wrong decisions, and they'll just do the job.
Yes, I think this is good, and also I think that maybe once organizations need to do this big step, because maybe for some of them it will be really a big challenge to do so, I think they should not be afraid of asking for help.
I just want to say something that I just looked up, because I feel like, especially now with the new changes with the red, white, red card that benefit mostly IT specialists, I feel like the lawmakers are missing the point. Even if it's money that motivates the change in the law, I feel like they're missing the point of allowing foreign artists to come to Austria, because foreign artists contribute to the rich culture everyone loves about Austria, and that brings so many tourists to Austria, which I read brings 1.9 billion a year, which I think is a lot of input. And just quickly, I took a look at the web page of the Viennese Opera, and I want to share with you that there are 130 singers currently at the opera, and 115 are foreigners. 23 conductors, 22 of them are foreigners, which means that, of course, we need people from around the world to make the culture scene what it is, and something that brings value to everyone.
But I mean, I have a experience. It was like a kind of artist job, but not really relevant. It was like a checking the tickets and work at the art festival. And I sent my portfolio, my study, everything, and they didn't accept me. Even I can speak German, but because of my accent, they didn't accept me. I mean, what is what they expect from me? It's just controlling the tickets. Even doesn't need to speak with the people.
But the IMS didn't accept the employment, or
no,
the employer?
I mean the employer. Yeah.
I can't really say. I mean, employers have different. Everyone has various criteria. I can't really say on that. We have the freedom in that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's really limited opportunity to find these jobs, because I mean, you see my portfolio. Okay, what is my my language? For example, my mother language Farsi. I can speak German, Deutsch, German, English, and then they compare my portfolio with the Austrian citizenships person who can speak German as a mother language, English perfect, French, Italian. I don't know, because they had this opportunity because they had this opportunity and this education, but this art institute, they don't think about, okay, this portfolio from Middle East, what was the background, what is the background or the opportunity, and then they take the...
Sadly, this is a problem I would feel in every industry for immigrants, not only for artists. We see it all the time, that immigrants don't fit the Austrian framework of what an employee for a certain position should be, and then they naturally looked past their nationality.
Also, our stories
Our stories the same. Yeah, we also have experienced it personally.
Yes, and I think that it's also a question of diversity, but maybe it will be another topic for another discussion. And I think that now we can open to the audience, because maybe there will be some comments. Jelena.
Hello, thank you so much for the discussion. It's really interesting. I'm originally coming from Azerbaijan, and I studied in Vienna, graduated CU last year, also participated in the project with Daria. Unfortunately missed it because of the work. And I think you kind of mentioned a lot of things about the process of integration here, but you missed also to point out the financial aspect, which is really important, because apart from getting the job here, it's not only that you need to have a job offer, you really need to have the criteria of 2,600 per month. And I think it's not only about being an artist and be able to get this money within the country. I mean, if you're Austrian or immigrant, but also it's kind of the criteria which is really high. And now I think from the 1st of October, they are changing it to 3,400, which is, I don't know who really gets this money in Austria as a cultural worker. And talking about, I really don't see the name, I'm sorry, my friend from Iran. about the job applications, it doesn't matter if you're artist or someone. The only nationality plays a lot of role because no one wants to have a deal with the MAS, because even as a student who are allowed to work 20 hours, there is really rare worker who will agree to take you for the job because they don't know what's MAS. They don't want to put themselves in any trouble to wait at least even 2 days or 3 days, and you need to be really lucky. So I don't know how it works with the government now, because everyone was expecting that this new decision about immigration process would be easier for most of us, especially for people who graduate here. But it's getting worse and worse, and like how the Austrian community reacts on it, for example, or like what you would advise as a legal advisors, because you are more professional and you face more things maybe daily basis than us. I mean, which ways to find out, you know, to stay like 3, 4, it's kind of crazy amount of money. I mean, as you mentioned, maybe IT people or engineers can get it. So they get more, okay. But how to do it for cultural workers?
Honestly, when the bill passed and when they set unfair criteria, then complain. The only way for me is to complain until someone hears it.
Yeah, but you took, because there was the question about should we hire someone like artists from different countries, or we want to hire the migrants, and I think it's really important also to give to the employee information that like maybe salary which you provide would never be enough for the MAS to accept this person and to give them the permission to stay here.
It's really mostly a question of preparation, and that, I have to say, goes to the employers. Because, I mean, it is up to them to inform themselves what the process is. I don't know if it's, of course, as everything we can make awareness, we can spread more information. That is always valuable. Of course, the question always is, does it reach the right people? The employers have to consider this when they're hiring a third country national. Most employers they really don't know anything. And they will expect that when you meet someone at the interview and they really like you at the interview and you'll be able to start next week, and that is not possible. Also, when you are a student and when you'll be working only 20 hours a week, what was it, 8 weeks was it in advance that you need to? 8 weeks. 8 weeks in advance you need to inform already IMS with a specific position for a specific permit for that position.
Which means it's even cutting opportunity to work in the restaurant just to get money.
Yes, absolutely.
It's cutting all opportunities from any student, and the process per se, with the extension of the residency permit as a student was providing 12,000 on account. I find it, I mean, of course, realistic maybe for some people who come to study here, but doing this process every year and finding 12,000 and not be able to work, it limits you not only just, you need to be wealthy basically, because you don't have access to the work market and you need to be wealthy to stay here and study. That's all. There is no other opportunity, because if you really don't have this money on your account, if you fake it or take it as a loan or something, you still need to return it back. How to live.
I mean, exactly, I have the same problem as well, because as a student, I am allowed just to work here 20 hours, and I mean, in that last year, I changed my works 3 times, and it was 2 different theaters which I worked with them, and in the end, for this extend process of my visa, the MFM they asked me, why you change your work so many times? I was like, I'm so sorry, I'm artist and I have to change my work, and it is because you need to live here and you need to change your work, and then you have to wait for this Arbeitsbewilligung 6 weeks, 4 weeks, and
what I'm going to say, don't take take it as my personal opinion, but it is the logic of the law. As we explained in the beginning, every residence permit has its purpose. It's issued for a specific purpose, and the student's residence permit is issued so you can study in Austria, given the fact that you can support yourself. The right to work and access to labor market is a complementary to that original reason for you to be able to study in the country. I understand, of course, unfair. I also come from a country with way lower living standard in Austria, and I worked 3 jobs simultaneously, even in Bulgaria, to put myself through law school. I'm very much aware. I work every shitty job in the world alongside my very fancy job in the legal office, where I was paid in an envelope a fraction of a salary. Yeah, so I'm really aware of that. I feel that this is the social injustice that's not Austria in particular. Sadly, it's the world we live in. But the opportunity that students have to actually work and have access to the labor market, although it's difficult, it's still really.
Germany doesn't have this limitation, for example.
I understand, but Germany is another country. Every country make their own laws. So
just as example,
I understand that.
Like this because it's Austria. I thought like there's countries which really understand what's to be the student.
We are sorry.
Basically welcoming the students. I'm screaming not because I'm screaming to you. I'm just like raising my voice so you hear what I tell.
We understand that, but at that point, that's the law, and we can do not. The only thing we can do is to complain. To have a lobby. We need a lobby.
Yes. I think you came a bit later, but in the introduction I said that we are together here not to make another discussion about complaining about how miserable the situation is. We all know about this, and we are here to think about what can be changed and what are the strategies to maybe think about, not in a positive way, but at least to know that there are certain things we are in the capacity of changing on the podium, and we have here people who are in the capacity of advising us all when we have problems on the legal stage. And these are people who can read these texts in German and interpret them and tell us what does it mean, and also then the capacity of telling us why EMA 35 is so shitty in a way, and why EMA 35 writes these very complicated letters and no one understands them, even if you are very fluent in German. And this is, in this manner, I would say, we're here to think about together how to improve the situation for us. And I think that Jelena wanted to say something after all.
So this was the second question after your question. It's more a comment actually, because I went through the Austrian education system, and I know that there is a very concrete thing that could be done for third country nationals, but it's for some reason not happening. One of these things is that, like, if you want to do your practicum, internship as a third country national, and this is not inscribed in your study program, then you need a working permit for your internship. This is very absurd. I think that the universities could make this very small but very important change just by adding a possibility in for all the students, because some departments have it in the study program, some don't, but like for all students to make it easier. One more thing that I was kind of, that provoked me a bit, that Clara said, like this preferential treatment. I think this preferential treatment is definitely not happening, because I also think that university, when they want to hire staff, there is a very hidden clause there which requires permanent residency, because otherwise they don't look at your application at all. So this requirement of already having settled your life here in Austria is needed so that you can apply for this job. So maybe this preferential treatment suggestion or political claim could go more into the direction of, okay, yes, hire a third country national, experts, but don't limit this with kind of permanent residency requirement, because there is already some preferential or preferred groups in these job descriptions, and I think that this could be something added. But this also means a kind of responsibility to actually do it, the whole procedure. Also, very shortly, like the person who is self-employed in Austria, this is like completely like a type of stay which is outside of the labor law in some way, or it's a specific part of labor law. It's not like you're not regulated or supported by any official institution, which, for example, Arbeiterkammer or something like this. So this question of self-employed, this is like also something that self-employed artists share with, for example, care workers, which could be one thing to unite about. For example, to maybe build an institution that will support them in their self-employed claims, because the state doesn't have a way to regulate these kind of things. And very final thing is that, like, third country nationals with artist visa, they're forced to pay taxes. So this amount, which has been talked about here, requires you to pay tax. So you will for sure, if you want to remain here the next year and the next year, because you renew it every single year, you will need to pay this tax. But you are not, you're like economic subject, but you're not political subject. So you cannot vote, but you need to pay this tax. So this is for me a very critical moment that I would like to point out to today, when we're talking about like very kind of concentrated problems here. I would like to hear more about you about this Freiheit der Kunst. What does this actually mean? And is it good for the artist, or is it not good for the artists?
Yeah, I just wanted to, before I referred to that, I wanted to say that together with IG Bildende Kunst Helping Hands, we have already formulated various demands, and we have this document, and I think it's really also great that we come into discussion, that we can really also formulate our demands and ideas together and really continue this conversation, because there's really concrete possibility, but there's also greater ideas and demands, and I think it's really important to come up with one document together, to have it as a basis and to continue and see who can take it to whom and who can raise awareness with whom. And for the freedom question, I don't quite understand in which direction you want to go with the question, but I think it's really also something that we discussed before, that there is the idea that an artist has more privileges because there's a freedom to express within a country, but it's actually in a big contradiction with what is required in reality. And I do think there's something where the terms of pushing our demands and really lobbying in this regard can help to contribute to this freedom. But I think in terms of, as we said before, the realistic implementation is just not there. But
I would just like to add that yes, freedom of art is guaranteed by the Constitution, Verfassung, but not for third country nationals, because the law sees the art as an economic activity.
It's also this, when we have certain issues and we have regulations overlapping, and for some things we only look at it from social security law perspective, and for other things we only look at it from tax law perspective, and that is very confusing. In terms of the self-employment, and you ask for regulations, there cannot be any regulations, because self-employed people are entrepreneurs, and that is actually the business, that's actually the freedom of contracting, meaning that if you agree to that, then that is your job to know what's good for you. It also goes to the fact that entrepreneurs, any kind of business, has a much higher level of things they should know. And you can see this very easily when it comes to consumer rights, for example, okay? So when we deal with business as consumers, we have massive rights. It's incredible the things we can get. It's incredible the things we can complain about. Example, I go and purchase, I don't know, a pair of pants from somewhere. As a consumer, I can return them. If it was online, I could go on the website. If it didn't provide me with information enough, I can return them for like 6 months, etc. If I buy those pants as a self-employed person and I need them, for example, say for, I don't know, for an exposition, for example, and I buy them in my capacity as a self-employed person, then I only have 14 days to decide whether or not there was something wrong with the pens before I have the right to return them. And you can see the big difference between 14 days and 6 months. So a much higher level of knowing what you're doing, so to say, is being applied to entrepreneurs, and this is why we thought it's so unfair when it serves the state. Artists are treated as entrepreneurs, and when it doesn't serve the state, they're artists.
I just want to add there are two different types of self-employment. The one which requires a business license, Gewerbe, and the one which doesn't. Artists, they're called new self-employed. Artists belong to the new self-employed, and it is sadly for new self-employed persons, it's a matter of self-organization to create representation. The Heban midwives, midwives, for example, they're also new self-employed, but they have representation, they have a chamber. So it is really a matter of self-organization to do that for that specific part of self-employment.
Precisely, because you give an example with Arbeiterkammer. So if you would have a business license, for example, so Gewerbe, then mandatorily you become a member of WIENWOCHE. It's another Austrian thing, like it's mandatory that you become a member, right? So you have representation. There is an organization fighting for your interests. Sadly, as Severina explained, you don't.
Maybe I want to give the micro to you, and they say that you don't have.
Within the arts, of course, we have these advocacy groups called in English, or Interessensgemeinschaften. Of course, we don't have the power of WKO, but we are loud enough. But still, of course, I understand that you are aiming more at, let's say, more structural institution. Of course, it has advantages to be structural because probably it will get properly financed, but on the other hand, it won't be that independent. So the thing is that our advantage is that we are self-organized, and of course we are independent, and we act on behalf of our members. So basically this is the huge advantage, and of course, it is not very easy in terms of lobbying and in terms of making claims about changing laws. So obviously, there is no big interest, for example, to deal with third country nationals because simply these people are no voters. The same applies also to people with European Union passport. So we also don't have the right to vote. So we are not political subjects, and we do not participate that actively, but at least we have the privilege of freedom of movement within the European Union, which is already a big privilege compared to others. But maybe I would say closing statements, whoever wants to say something as a final, and otherwise we can just have some drinks and talk in a more informal way.
Maybe can I say something? Maybe not as a last one, but I would like to say something. When also showing the video and working on the topic, of course, waiting is one of the most important things. And waiting, it's also, I mean, waiting, it changes actually everything, you know, because you either wait for a long period of time, so you're willing to do a lot of things. So the question of what's your freedom of choice is actually, should be questioned, because a lot of time it's not your freedom of choice, you make kind of a decision to survive. So like Charlotte said, for example, she's a lot of working in the topic of borders. And I mean, I can imagine sometimes you really get bored of always being asked the same question. Can you please talk again about being a migrant, being presented as someone who is having problems with borders? But on the other hand, you have to do it. You have to do it because if you don't do it, you may not survive. And you have and you always jump or you get frustration. You have, I don't know, within this long period of time, a lot of things happen. And not everybody is able to pass through it. And when I was working on the video and also listening all these bureaucratic topics, you know, sometimes you're like, what am I actually doing? What am I actually talking? So you ask yourself, how can I deconstruct this topic, you know, to create something that feels at least a little bit more as the freedom of choice to do something that I feel represented, or I'm representing someone that is artistic and that is not only about problems, it's also kind of an abstract way of finding solution, although all these topics are really, really heavy. So that was, so I'm not finished, you know, as you have seen, but that was also like, I'm really struggling when working for such a long time with it. It's like how to get out of my mindset, you know, of always repeating, but still having kind of not losing your creative sense of whatever you want to do. And I think that's tough.
Thank you. Two tiny remarks from my side for the final statement. First, I'd really like to invite everyone in this room who's interested in really working together on this topic also to like get in touch, give me your email address, and we'll really continue and see how we can cooperate. And the second tiny remark, I'd suggest maybe also for those who came later to maybe watch the film one more time. For those who want, the other ones can maybe, who've already seen it, go outside, have a drink, so yeah, everyone can watch the film. That was a suggestion. Thank you.
For me, something for a closing statement. Just fight for your rights. This is very important. If we don't fight unjust decisions, unlawful decisions, we can't move past this, and no change will come.
I will join you, and I would like to add, don't take no for an answer when you are dealing with this administration, especially if you are there in person and they just say no. Don't take no for an answer. Always ask for a written answer. And yeah.
See you at the M35 office tomorrow. No. I mean, yeah, I mean, I wish you and myself as well to have enough energy to continuing this long process. Thank you.
So thank you all for being here and providing us with a lot of information and insights, and short remark, maybe notes. We had Miglena Dimitrova, who is actually also working at the Bildende Kunst. Maybe it's good to meet her in person because she's also the person who answers the phone. Just in case you call sometime and ask for whatever help you need. She took notes, and we would like very much to revise the notes, and also with the help of the record of the meeting, we will provide a handout which WIENWOCHE will kindly put online. And I think maybe there will be a record of the discussion online. Yes. So anyhow, if you have friends who are interested in the topic, of course, afterwards you can spread the information. And I think that within the written paper we can also put the contacts of Clara and of Miglena and Severina. So I hope you don't need them on a professional basis. We also wish for the IGERA people don't need us very badly, but the truth is that, yeah, this won't happen anytime soon. So thanks a lot, and have a nice evening.